Hi, I'm Brad Cousins. Well, participatory evaluation, it's been around for quite a while now, probably more than 30 years. It's got its roots in international development, but say over the last 20 years or so, it's really gained popularity in the West, in particular in North American contexts. So on the one hand, we have a growing body of research on participatory evaluation, but on the other, there's still lots of confusion. And that's my motivation for doing this little video segment, is because, first of all, I'd like to cover the essentials of the approach, the basics, and then I'd like to clarify some misconceptions about it. Finally, I'm just going to talk a little bit about future directions for ongoing development and research and practice. In my mind, it's evaluation first and foremost, but it's evaluation where trained evaluators work in partnership. And they work with program or project stakeholders to produce evaluative knowledge. Now, it's an approach. It's not a model. It's not a design. It's got flexibility and fluidity. It can take different forms in different contexts. So we like to think of it as an approach. Well, there are three main justifications. The first one has to do with practical problem solving. So this is what we would call a pragmatic or instrumental justification. We want to make the program better. We want to address some accountability needs. We have practical problem solving with which to deal. So that's a justification for doing a collaborative approach such as participatory evaluation. Second one would be skill building or capacity building, working with people to help foster self-determination and action. And this would be very much aligned with, international development interests, but it's really a political or transformative justification. And it has a lot to do with helping people to understand their strengths and to build on those. The final justification is developing at deeper levels our understanding and meaning of complex phenomena. This is a philosophical or epistemological justification. So with each of these justifications, it's going to be a question of emphasis depending on particular purposes. Quite a while ago with Bessa Whitmore, we identified two principal streams of participatory evaluation. The first one is transformative participatory evaluation, and it's very emancipatory and empowerment oriented. Here's where we're using evaluation to leverage social action. The second strand we would call practical participatory evaluation, and this is more associated with practical problem solving, and it's very much utilization oriented. Each of these two streams would draw from the three justifications that I've just mentioned. So it's a question of degree and emphasis. I think both streams are very much interested in deeper understanding and meaning. I mentioned that this is a partnership. That means that the evaluators are involved and non-evaluator stakeholders are involved. So if we have a partnership, partners bring different things to the table. From the evaluator's perspective, they're going to bring standards of professional practice, and they're going to bring knowledge of evaluation logic and skill. They may have some knowledge of the program and some knowledge of the context, but that's not their strong suit. It is a strong suit, however, of the program community members. They know the program context because they live there. And they know the program function because they work in that context and they experience the program firsthand. They may have some knowledge of evaluation logic and standards, but it seems to me that that's likely to be usually a bit more limited than not. I gotta say, a lot of the work that we do is practical participatory evaluation. And the kinds of settings that I find that works best would be, it's a formative, improvement-oriented context. If you've got a hard-nosed, summative, judgmental question, it may not be the right opportunity to do participatory evaluation. Also, there would be a reasonable consensus on issues. You don't have a lot of controversy about what the program or project's trying to accomplish. There's got to be commitment there, organizational and program practitioner commitment from the community, and so on. Finally, there should be a good resource base. Resources in terms of time and money and personnel. Bessa Whitmore and I also developed a little framework that talks about 3 different dimensions of collaborative inquiry. You might think about these as semantic differential scales. The first one is who controls the evaluation technical decision making. Is it the evaluator on the one hand or the stakeholders on the other? Secondly, stakeholder selection for participation. We want to make sure that we've got the right people selected to participate in the activities. Now, they could be a limited group of folks involved, or it could be much more broadly defined and diverse in many respects. The third dimension would range in terms of involvement in the technical evaluative activities of the stakeholders. So at one end, it could be rather limited involvement, more of a consultative kind of role. Toward the other end, which would be much more deep in terms of engaging in all the technical activities of the evaluation. If we look at this particular graphic, we can think about these fundamental dimensions of participatory evaluation, collaborative inquiry in evaluation, as being orthogonal or independent. If we look at it in this 3-dimensional way, we can differentiate different types of participatory evaluation. Here we can see that practical participatory evaluation and transformative participatory evaluation are both kind of it's shared control between evaluators and stakeholders. However, where they really differ is on the diversity of stakeholder involvement. With practical, it's much more primary users. People can really do something with the evaluation. On the other hand, in transformative context, it's likely to be a broader group because we're talking about democratic deliberation and decision making and discussion, and there's lots of opportunity for dialogue. We can see also in this graphic the more conventional stakeholder-based evaluation, where evaluators are very much in control, and the role of program stakeholders is more in a consultative kind of role. So this framework has worked well for us to differentiate different types of participatory evaluation or different genres of it. And here's another graphic that I think speaks to some interests that ongoing interests we have in developing principles for collaborative inquiry. So first of all, we have a call for collaborative inquiry. There has to be some kind of impetus for the project in the first place. But what are its specific purposes? That has yet to be determined, and that's determined through the lens of context. Here we can see it's represented as a prism. And out of that prism, there could be all kinds of different purposes that might arise, depending on what the context holds. So there's a lot of different goals and interests that can be addressed and accomplished in participatory evaluation. But given once we've developed those and come to an understanding of them, then it's a case of looking at what form will it take. And here's where we bring in the 3-dimensional framework. We talk about who controls the decision making, we talk about who should we involve as participants, and we talk about to what extent should they be involved. So I think this is a really great way to think about participatory evaluation because it really speaks to the fluidity of it and how we need to be guided by a set of principles in order to decide just what it's going to look like in practice. And in fact, that's a project that we're working on now, myself with Bessa Whitmore and Lynn Shula. We're actually considering the development through working with evaluators to understand what are the important principles through which we can decide what participatory looks like in practice. So there you have it, some thoughts about some basic information about participatory evaluation and a little bit of clarity around some of the important elements of it, and some thoughts about future directions. Thanks for listening.